So before we begin, the DSU acknowledges that Dalhousie University and the Dalhousie Student Union building are located on traditional, unceded, and unsurrendered Mi'kmaq territory. The Dalhousie Student Union seeks to honor the relational treaty processes in its programming, events, meetings, and interactions. So at our first meeting, we need to appoint our council chair, so I will be acting chair for a moment. So could I get a motion to accept the agenda as circulated? Moved by Masuma, seconded by Chantal. Any opposition? Accepted on unanimous consent. Are there any amendments to the agenda? Is there a motion to add the appointments of the chair? Do you want to?
Isn't that what you want me to do?
Yeah. So,
I motion to appoint Chris as chair. Is that what?
Perfect. So that's going to be added to the agenda.
Can that be added to the agenda?
perfect.
Seconder.
Is there a seconder? Thank you, Corey. Is there any opposition? Seeing none, that is accepted on unanimous consent. Yay. Is there also a motion to appoint the dentistry and medicine counselors?
I motion to do that.
Great. Is there a seconder? Ashley? Any opposition? Seeing none, unanimous consent.
So now we're just on the agenda.
Are there any other amendments to the agenda? And seeing none,
Adoption of the agenda.
I'd like to call for the adoption of the agenda. Mover Masuma, seconder Alex. Any opposition? Accepted on unanimous consent.
Moving on to the appointment of the chair.
So moving on to the appointment of the chair.
Do I have a motion to appoint Chris as chair?
Do I have a motion to appoint Chris Abrahams as the council chair for the DSU? Masuma? Seconder? Chantal? Any opposition? Seeing none, that's approved on unanimous consent.
Perfect, thank you. I'm going to take over now. So next on the agenda is since we added it in, the appointment of the dentistry and medicine representative. So we have Chad here representing the Faculty of Medicine and Katie representing the Faculty of Dentistry. They have both been appointed by their faculty level societies that opted out of the elections policy that was passed at last year at council. So do I have a mover and a seconder to appoint Chad, the dentistry representative, Corey and Alex?
Chad's in medicine.
Medicine, sorry.
Yeah,
Appoint Chad, the medicine representative. Moved by Corey, seconded by Alex. Is there any opposition to appointing Chad as the medicine representative?
Chad, how do you spell your last name?
Leclair. It's capital C.
Seeing none, it's accepted on unanimous consent. Moving on to the appointment of the dentistry representative, Katie. Katie has been appointed by her faculty level society to represent dentistry students. There are a mover and a seconder to appoint Katie as the dentistry rep on the Dalhousie Student Union, moved by Masuma, seconded by Katie. Katie McClellan, doesn't have to be.
There's going to be 4 Katie's.
Yeah, perfect. Any opposition to appointing Katie as the dentistry representative?
I'm sorry, Katie, what's your last name?
Rumbolt, RUMBOLT.
Seeing none, it's accepted on unanimous consent. Moving right along. The minutes of the previous meeting were circulated. Are there any objections to the minutes as they were circulated? Any amendments or anything to the minutes? Do I have a motion to accept the minutes of the April 5th? Sure.
I was told that the motion that was passed for the committee about reviewing the elections process was absent from the minutes.
Yeah, the actual text of the motion was absent from the minutes. You are correct.
And so I'm just wondering
If that should be added.
Yeah, and unfortunately, like, I haven't been able to find it. So
I think that's Kathleen.
Okay. What we could do is not approve these minutes at this meeting. We could approve the minutes at the next meeting when we actually have the text of the motion. I think that's potentially a good plan because you're right, it should be in there. Okay. Is there a mover and a seconder to table the acceptance of the minutes to next meeting? Moved by Katie, seconded by Corey. Any opposition to the tabling of the acceptance of the minutes? Seeing none, it's accepted on unanimous consent. Communications received. The only communications that I have received are from Katie Douglas, who's in Regina and has a job, so isn't able to attend the meeting right now. She will hopefully be able to teleconference in for future meetings. Moving right along to appointments. So we have three committees to which we will be appointing members this meeting. They are the Grants and Sponsorship Committee, the Society Review Committee, and the Bylaw and Policy Review Committee. Each of these committees requires 2 councillors to be members and 1 non-councillor to be a member. If the chair of each committee wants to very briefly talk about what the committee actually does, I would recognize that, starting with the Grants and Sponsorship Committee. Chantal, do you want to quickly give an overview of what the Grants and Sponsorship Committee does?
I'll try my best. Okay, so the Grants and Sponsorship Committee will review grants and sponsorships and award them to those they deem priority in relevance to the budget. Am I missing anything else? I think that's it. We meet bi-weekly. You have one of the coolest jobs. You get to watch people do things, and it's great. Yeah.
Perfect. The Society Review Committee, Alex?
Society Review Committee meets to ratify faculty level and levied societies. So you get to read their constitutions and make sure that they have all the things they need, which is so fun. And then you also, this year is going to be a little different, so I'm going to be using it as an opportunity to review society policy itself and just have an ongoing conversation about how we can be better serving societies, like anything that folks see that we could be doing differently, as well as helping with society space allocation in the winter term and any kind of society issues that come up throughout the year.
Perfect. And Amina, do you want to talk about the Bylaw and Policy Review Committee?
So the Bylaw and Policy Review Committee is the funnest committee. We will be looking at bylaws and policies, as the name states. But we went through a pretty big bylaw review, and a lot of our policies are actually not in line with the new bylaws. So we'll be looking at a lot of policies, and any policies that come to council need to go to the committee first. So yeah, if you love policies and bylaws, you should join my committee.
Perfect. So again, as stated, every councillor is required to join one committee, not necessarily one of these 3 committees. Over the summer and into September, we'll be appointing many different committees. I don't have an exhaustive list of them on hand right now, but there are lots of them. So do not feel pressured to join a committee on your first meeting. However, if you are interested in grants and sponsorship, society review, or bylaw and policy review, I heavily encourage you to do this. So starting with the grants and sponsorship.
Sorry, point of information.
Yeah.
Did you say every councillor needs to be on one committee?
Yeah, there's one committee of these. Yeah. So starting with the grants and sponsorship committee, are there any people who would like to be nominated to be a council member for the grants and sponsorship? Chad, Yeah, Chantal, you're the chair.
Okay, yeah.
You don't need to be nominated. You are also on it.
Yep.
As a function. Any other councilors who would like to be on the grants and sponsorship? Katie. Perfect. Chad. Katie. Any other members who would like to be on the grants and sponsorship committee? Calling for the third time. Seeing none, I close nominations for council members. Based on the fact that there are only 2 people and there are 2 spots, I would like to move that Katie McClellan and Chad Leclerc be appointed as council. I can't move that. Does somebody want to move that Katie McClellan and Chad be appointed the council members on the grants and sponsorship committee? Moved by Corey, seconded by Amina. Any opposition to the appointment of Katie and Chad? Seeing none, taken on unanimous consent. Congratulations, Katie and Chad. There is also, yes, information, yeah.
What about the non-council?
Yes, well, that's what I was going to say. Are there any nominations for a non-council member for the grants and sponsorship committee?
Do they have to be here?
They don't necessarily have to be here now.
I think they have to be aware.
But yeah, they definitely do have to like accept a nomination in some way. They have to accept.
I have someone that showed interest to me but was unable to come tonight.
Yeah.
I'd like to put her name in potentially.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
What's
Point of information.
sure?
Is there any room for retroactive nominations if there aren't spots filled at this meeting? So once you've closed nominations today?
Yeah, absolutely. So appointments, any committees that we don't fill today will be filled at the next meeting, hopefully. Next meeting, we do have a couple of other committees to fill, but if they aren't filled today, we can always fill them. And as long as we get councilors on the committees, they will all have a quorum. So it's not the end of the world if we don't appoint all 3 members of a committee today. So Chantal, do you want to nominate somebody for this?
yeah, could I nominate Savannah Green?
Sure. Savannah.
Yes, and then Green with an E at the end.
Perfect. Anybody in the gallery want to be nominated for the grants and sponsorship committee?
Yeah.
Perfect. Somebody want to nominate Serena to be on the grants and sponsorship committee? Perfect. Nominated by Corey. Serena, do you accept the nomination?
Yeah.
Perfect. Serena, what's your last name?
Jackson.
Perfect. So we have 2 potential people for this committee. Are there any other nominations for a non-council member on the grants and sponsorship committee? Are there any other nominations for non-council member on the grants and sponsorship committee? For the 3rd time, are there any other nominations for grants for non-council member on the grants and sponsorship committee? Seeing none, nominations are closed. Where we have 2 potential appointees, I will give Serena 2 minutes to, 4 minutes to speak about herself, about why she'd be a good fit for the committee. I will give whoever wants to speak in Savannah's favor an opportunity to speak for Savannah. Then will follow an in-camera discussion of the nominees, followed by a vote. So it goes alphabetically by last name, so we'll start with Savannah. So Serena, I'll ask you to leave the room. And Chantal, do you have something that you wanted to say about Savannah? Wait until like,
Savannah, hold on.
Yeah, wait until Serena leaves.
Oh, sorry, okay. For that. Savannah will be going into her 3rd year this September. She's a new student at DAL. She wants to get involved with the union. She is a social science and psychology student. Previously studying at Mount A. She's just interested in learning a little bit about like financial duties of the union. That's all I got about Savannah. She's lovely.
Perfect. Somebody want to call Serena in?
I'll do it.
Okay.
Oh, God. Hey, you can put it up. So I gotta make myself useful, right?
Serena?
Yeah.
Wherever you want to speak from. You have up to 4 minutes to talk about yourself.
Okay, hi, I'm Serena Johnson. I'm a first year computer science student and kind of new to DAL. I came here in the fall, but I've been quite, I guess, I've already become quite involved with DAL. Like I did student health promotion at the beginning of the year, and I did debate society, and I got involved, so I'm a terrible public speaker, but I got involved with the CS Society as well, and I've continued on to become treasurer of debate society, Sedalis, and I enjoyed it very much. The reason why I'm interested in this committee is because I've heard amazing things, mostly from Chris, but I can tell that it's a good place to be, and I think it can be quite helpful. I'm very interested in everything that's going on at DAL. I really want to know more, and I'm quite on top of things. I'm good with numbers. I'm a programmer. Yeah, so basically that is me, and if you have any more questions, feel free to ask.
Does anybody have any questions for Serena?
Yeah, so I'll be around. Let me know.
Perfect. If you want to leave, we're going to go in camera to discuss nominations.
Okay. Thanks for this opportunity.
No, just leave
You gotta go, you gotta leave the room.
We'll call you back in.
Okay.
Just go. All right, perfect. So the result of the vote, congratulations, Serena. Is she in here? So we'll have a formal motion to appoint Serena Jackson as the non-council member on the Grants and Sponsorship Committee. I'm a mover and a seconder. Moved by Katie, seconded by Corey. Any opposition? Seeing none, congratulations, Serena. Serena, you still can't sit at the table. Sorry. You're on a committee, but you're not on council. Congratulations, Serena.
Thank you.
Perfect. So the Grants and Sponsorship Committee is full. Let's move on to the Society Review Committee. Do I have any nominees for as council members for the Society Review Committee?
I have a question.
Yep.
How many counselors do you need on that committee?
2 on the Society Review Committee.
So it's, again,
It's a 5-member committee because the Vice President of Finance also sits on it as like a vice chair. So it's Alex, Chantel, and then 2 councilors and a nominee. Any councilors interested in making nominations for the Society Review Committee?
It's always so much fun.
I've sat on it. It is a good committee. Okay, Katie McClellan is nominated to. Okay. Yeah, I don't think she needs a second. Do you accept the nomination, obviously? Okay, we've got Katie. Any other nominees for this committee? Even if we just fill it and then we can review it later when we have more councilors, please, we need this committee to get up and running.
I can sit on it.
Yeah, you're an executive, so you can. Sorry. Katie, perfect. So Katie, Katie. Sorry, what's your last name? Dentistry, Katie?
Rumbled.
Rumbled, right. So we have Katie McClellan and Katie Rumbled. If there are any other councillor interested in sitting on the Society Review Committee, again, even on a summer basis.
And we need 2, right? Sorry.
We do need 2. Katie is already on the Grants Committee. Sorry, Katie McClellan is already on the Grants Committee. But she is eligible to sit on 2 committees.
Point of information.
Sure.
If there are more than 2 councillors who are interested, it would go through kind of a similar process.
It would, yes, unless a nomination were withdrawn. Calling for the second time, any other nominations for Society Review Committee? For the third time, any councillors? Nominations for the Society Review Committee? Seeing none, nominations are closed. So our 2 nominees are Katie McClellan and Katie Rumbled. As there are only 2 and there are 2 spots, do I have a motion to appoint Katie McClellan and Katie Rumbled as the members of the Society Review Committee? Go Alex, seconded by Masima. Is there any opposition to their appointment? Seeing none, it's taken on unanimous consent. Are there any non-council member appointments to the Society Review Committee? Yeah, there can be 1. Any non-council appointments to the Society Review Committee?
Did Savannah have any interest in a different committee?
She showed interest in just like any committee, so yeah. Can I vouch for her?
Yeah, you can absolutely nominate Savannah again.
Nominate Savannah?
Perfect.
Let her know.
Are there any other nominations for the second time for Society Review Committee? Are there any other nominations for Society Review Committee? Seeing none, I close nominations. As Savannah Green is the only non-council member and there is only 1 spot, are there any objections to appointing Savannah? We have a mover and a seconder that Savannah Green be appointed to the Society Review Committee. Alex and Corey. Is there any dissent to Savannah's appointment? Seeing none, that's taken on unanimous consent. Next up is the Bylaw and Policy Review Committee. So again, similar to the other committees, there is 2 council members and 1 non-council member. Do I have, Yazan has expressed interest in being appointed as a council member to the Bylaw and Policy Review Committee. Do I have any nominations for Bylaw and Policy Review Committee? Let me nominate Yazan, please. Jeremy. Oh, you're interested?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So.
For the record, I nominate myself.
Perfect. Thank you, Zan. Katie, are you in agreement? Katie, George, Jim?
Yeah.
Okay.
If there are other people, that's okay. I'll withdraw my nomination.
Okay. Other interest in sitting on the Bylaw and Policy Review Committee?
Did you have your hand up? Yeah, it's okay.
Any other non-executive council members for the Bylaw and Policy Review Committee? Third time. So our nominees, I call nominations closed. Our nominees are Yazan, Jeremy, and Katie George Jim. You'll all have 4 minutes to speak about yourself, and then there will be an in-council discussion, in-camera discussion.
I think I would.
Oh, okay, perfect. Yeah, absolutely. I can accept that.
I don't need more committees, it's fine. I'll join some later.
Okay, so our 2 nominees now are Yazan and Jeremy for the non-council or non-councilor spots on non-executive councilor members of the Bylaw and Policy Review Committee. Seeing if there are 2 nominees and 2 spots, is there a mover and a seconder to appoint Yazan and Jeremy to the Bylaw and Policy? Masuma and Alex. Is there any opposition to the appointment of Yazan and Jeremy to the Bylaw and Policy Review Committee? Seeing none, their appointment is taken on unanimous consent. Congratulations, Yazan.
Thank you.
This is fun. So, the next on the agenda is a non-council member for the Bylaw and Policy Review Committee. Are there any non-council member nominations for the Bylaw and Policy Review Committee?
Potentially, 1 second. No, Miriam Vergab, I think, has some.
Oh, Miriam Vergab.
She messaged me. I just want to make sure that she. Okay, she gave interest to grants and sponsorship and student life, but. Well.
We're appointing the student life later on in the summer. We'll have an opportunity to do that. Any non-council nominations for the Bylaw and Policy Review Committee? If we don't fill it at this meeting, we will bring it up again at the next meeting, advertise it again. For the second time, any non-council members nominations? For the third time? Seeing none, we will declare that seat vacant and appoint it at the next meeting. Good work, we got through the nominations. Up next is presentations. There are no presentations on the agenda. Next is the reports of the committees. Amina, did you want to talk about the Horde Caucus?
Yeah. So the board meets four times a year. Hasn't met yet since we've taken this position. But I did attend the Student Affairs Committee meeting, but those are in camera, so unfortunately can't talk about it. They're like confidential.
Great.
Does anyone else from the board caucus want to?
Oh.
It was a pretty heated meeting the last time. I guess that was in April. For those of you that don't know, the tuition fees were increased for the upcoming years. What else was passed? We're trying to get a financial planning committee started this summer. It's a really shitty policy. They brought it to us like not filled out. There wasn't even like a terms of reference that we wanted to approve, but they wanted to get it started, so they pushed it through. So hopefully I'm going to have a seat on that this summer, and it's going to be chaired by Aubrey something or other. He's an engineer, and the financial planning committee is meant to look at the strategic goals and direction of the university and looking at how we can have a more sustainable income that isn't just tuition and grant funding from the provincial government. So they didn't even assign a student to it. They were just like, oh, if you'd like to be involved, let us know and maybe we can invite you to a meeting. And so that's kind of not going to cut it right now, just because the point of having the financial planning committee was so we could have student input and more of a holistic view. So we'll keep you updated on that. That's probably the biggest thing that's come out of the past meeting. I think Amina and Jeremy went through transition, so that's cool. And I'm hoping we're going to talk more about how we can reach students that don't know what the board is and keep them updated with things that we tell you in council. So.
I'll also be meeting with the capital projects and finance committee this coming Tuesday, so stay tuned.
Yeah,
Perfect.
exciting.
Thank you, Horde Caucus. Does the Senate Caucus have anything to report?
Yeah, so I went to the meeting in April, and then they had another one at the beginning of May, and our last one is June 12th. The biggest thing that I'd like to talk about is the issue of 22 seats, and I'm sure Amina can chime in. I'm sure we all know for the past year, the 22 seats did not go through, and so they've been putting through a lot of recommendations, and we just were at a meeting maybe 2 weeks ago, SPGC, so the Senate Planning and Governance Committee, where there was an ad hoc committee in Senate that was analyzing who's in Senate and how the 22 seats could work. They have all these equations that they use, but basically they said that students could have 11 seats, admin could increase by 5, and faculty could increase by 14. The faculty was not okay with that, so they suggested that instead of admin getting 5 seats on top of what they already have in Senate, that students be given the 5 seats, so that there's 16 seats for students, and faculty representations increased by 14. That hasn't passed. So that's just where we're at right now. I basically wanted to bring this to council to get what councilors are feeling, what are our thoughts, will we be able to fill 16 seats? I don't know if they will give us the 5 seats because Carolyn Waters is very adamant on having at least 2 admin more spots on Senate, but this is definitely a conversation we can have.
Yeah, does anybody have any questions or thoughts on Shima's report?
Yeah.
So that's the new, that's a proposed motion that's going to be going to Senate to replace the motion that was passed last year as a compromise.
Sorry?
So
SPGC.
So the recommendation that came out of that is the motion that you're talking about to replace, or is it just an idea right now?
Do you want to speak to it?
Go ahead.
Well, I mean, the ad hoc committee had like a bunch of suggestions in different ways, and basically their thing, like they had an equation being like math doesn't lie, and there was three ways to solve the equation, and the ad hoc committee said you can stick with 2, but 1 must go. Basically, is how you can make this work. So the one that could go is the admin, and if we get faculty on our side, then we could have at least 16 seats and not 22. But Carolyn Waters, as we know, yeah. Yes, and
Cool, okay.
yeah, so there's a possibility it hasn't moved forward, but this was just basically a chance to bring it to counselors and talk about what it is we wanted to do, so we could join with faculty and be like, yo, we need those 5 seats. How can we work together so that the admin doesn't take over Senate as it's supposed to be majority faculty and student rep? Yeah.
And then just a follow-up, do you recommend then to like, especially faculty reps, to go back to their like, the people that represent them on Senate and talk to them about like where their vote should lie and?
Do you wanna?
Can I answer the first question or add to the first question? So it was a discussion that came to the Senate Planning and Governance Committee, so it hasn't been voted on yet. So I think at the next SPGC meeting it will go to a vote and then that will go to Senate. So there is an opportunity for us to like have discussions before the voting and bring that vote to the SPGC. But that's where it stands right now. And Kevin Hewitt, Chair of Senate, wanted to be here to give a presentation on kind of the history of the Senate composition and where we are currently, but he unfortunately wasn't able to make it.
Are there any other questions about the Senate report?
I guess I'll just put it out there. I think our best bet is to work with faculty to make sure that we get at least 5 more seats instead of having 11, so our representation goes up to 16. And then from there, whatever, whoever takes the rest of these seats, I was thinking that we prioritize community seats and then move to faculty seats for Senate. And then the rest of those seats that are not represented, we could have Senate meetings so that all that at least the senators that are not being represented at Senate could have a say and know what's going on in Senate, and so that we could actively represent them. So that way it can sort of be cohesive instead of being like, oh, you're not a senator, but you're there. So that's just my thought.
Perfect. If you have any questions, please contact Ms. Uma.
Yeah.
Jen. Perfect. Up next is old business. There is no old business on the agenda. Up next is new business. I haven't received any notice of motions. Nothing was amended. There is no new business. The business of the executive. Amina, do you want to present a report?
Yeah, so my report was circulated with the notice of motion, so I won't go super in depth. But some highlights from my report: we went through transition. It was long, it was intensive, but really valuable. I've been attending a lot of university meetings, which is always fun. The provincial elections happened. The Vote About It campaign, I'm sure Ms. Uma will talk about that more. We are also sitting on the Pride Week at DAL Committee. And as you know, there was a motion from council last year to boycott Halifax Pride, but we're having conversations about what our involvement with DAL Pride looks like and what programming we can do on campus and what student societies are doing that we can support. So if folks are interested and want to be involved, please let us know. Also, the Survivor Support Center, we've been doing a lot of work to get that up and running, so the job has been posted, so please circulate that widely. Yeah, and other than that, we've been attending convocations, and those have been really exciting. Congratulations to everyone who's graduated.
Any questions for Amina? Perfect. Alex?
Yeah, I also circulated mine with the council package, but I can just go dig through the main things. So transition, like Amina said, I've been ratifying some societies already. I think we're in year 75 now, which is great. We set up the job description for the Sexualized Violence Survivor Support Center manager. And that's really exciting. I'm really happy that that's finally out. We've got Megan, which is exciting. We've had some meetings around communications, what our strategy and plan is for the year. We're going to be having a lot more videos, which is exciting. And also working on the agenda for next year, because that surprisingly will be going to print soonish. And then, yeah, had some meetings with different university committees. I've been making some edits to the university's sexual violence policy draft, and we'll be having a meeting with our REG in a week or two to discuss some concerns with that. And Corey and I have also started planning the Society Expo and Impact Awards. Oh, and a week retreat too. But Corey will talk about that.
Sure. Any questions for Alex? All right, Chantal?
Cool. Again, communications. I've been also meeting with Sarah to kind of create a platform to be a more transparent executive over social media. We had a retreat at the beginning of May to start our goal setting. I plan on working with Megan and Yazan to adjust the policy concerning the Ethical Investment Committee to make the guidelines more specific, to create a position for a DSU representative on the committee. I've been meeting with Greg to find better food options for Sexton, as well as Pat to make Sexton a more livable space for students. I will be working with Corey and Jackie to create budgets and pricing for O-Week. I will be meeting with Verity Turpin, the Executive Director of Student Wellness, to create a financial literacy plan for students. I will be also meeting with Aramark to find more fun, better options for Sexton. I've been attending convocations, which has been wonderful. We have a grants and sponsorships committee, so we can meet now and give out grants and sponsorships, which is going to be so exciting. The check signing, paying employees, giving out international emergency bursaries to students who need it, and I've been working closely with DSU to create a food service position, as well as adjust the contracts with the co-directors to more evenly distribute work. Yeah, that's what I got so far. Oh, and key performance indicators with Chartwell and DSU. We're trying to create a policy around that before meeting Megan, which we will do soon. Thank you, Megan. That's all I got. Any questions?
Any questions for Chantal? All right, Masuma.
All right, so went through transition, did some goal setting, planning the Survivor Support Center, whose abbreviation has not changed. Doing campaign meetings with our outreach coordinator, Sarah, and our graphic designer, Emily. I've been planning campaigns for the year, and my plan is to have at least 12 campaigns, so at least one for every month. Been going through DSAS, which is the Dalhousie Student Advocacy Service. They transitioned, trying to build that relationship and go through their policies, which will come to council eventually. A week retreat, which was great. Amazing job, Corey. University relations, Pride committee that we were sitting on, lots of weird meetings with university people. So I attended Senate and all of the little committees that come with. There are the 22 seats that we spoke about, and I attended a ratification meeting with Bob. I have another one next week, as I am an academic integrity officer. I've also been dealing with multiple student cases alongside DSAS, so there's been a lot of work there. And in terms of advocacy, as we all know, the provincial elections happened. It was very short notice to create a campaign, as well as there was no students, not as many students as we would have hoped for on campus. So we did what we could. We created shareables, we did class talks, chalking, we did 2 videos. We know that the Liberals have a majority government today, just barely a majority government. So moving forward, figuring out ways to hold this government accountable and hoping that there's no more resets. Advocacy continues. There you go.
Thanks, Ms. Zuma. Any questions for Ms. Zuma? Katie?
Sorry, I just have a question. Somebody was asking me, so until the decision is made about the senators, the student senators, how does one get nominated to be one of the 3 senators besides yourself?
The 3 senators are already specific. So it's
So-
me, Amina, an agriculture student, a grad student, and
The 3 general. In the 3 general.
Oh, I think they just come to council.
Yeah, get nominated?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
No worries.
Any other questions for Ms. Zuma? All right, Corey?
Yeah, so my report was also circulated. Okay, so I'll just briefly touch on 2 big projects that I've been working on. So A Week is obviously one of them. So David Cottrell, the A Week coordinator, and I have been working to get A Week off the ground. So earlier this month we put together a committee, which then went on retreat, which the result of that was a firm schedule of the week's events. So that's awesome. We've been meeting with SWAG and trying to get that sorted out. Been discussing room bookings with Dow and getting those sorted out. Just for everyone's information, A Week is going to be taking place from September 2nd to the 4th. We just decided on our theme. It's going to be a beach-themed A Week. So really excited about that. We hired a sponsorship coordinator, so Brooke Kennedy is dealing with all of our, is attempting to pull in as much money for A Week as she possibly can. But not just for A Week, but also for the handbook and for Dalfest as well. Just on Dalfest, it is our 10th anniversary this year, so we're working hard to make it something a little bit extra special. So I've been talking with a lot of different agents, setting out some offers. Hopefully have some more updates on that a little later. So I guess 2 just sort of general announcements for your constituents is that firstly, summer yoga is going to be starting up tomorrow in the wellness room from 7 to 8. That's free for all students. That's on a 6-week trial period just to see what our attendance looks like. And also we're still accepting applications for A Week leaders. I think we have, last count we have about 120, but we're shooting for 200, so you can just let them know about that.
Perfect. Does anybody have any questions for Corey?
Yeah. When's the deadline for the applications?
Not for a long time. I would imagine August, I think.
Any other questions for Corey? No, perfect. Let's move on to notice of motions. So Yazan has a notice of motions. Yazan, are you there?
Yeah, sorry for replying so late. It's just that I have to unmute my phone here. Otherwise, you'll hear everything that's going on in the background. The notice of motion is I want to amend the ethical investment policy to make it more specific and less vague, and to balance more clearly our fiduciary duties as counselors along with our responsibilities according to our ethical investment guidelines. So I want to clarify that policy a little more. Yeah.
Perfect. So you don't have an exact motion text, do you?
No, I will be sending you that within the end of the week.
Sure.
And I know that we'll be meeting next one, so I think that's ample time.
Okay, perfect. So I'll circulate it to counselors, but consider it on the agenda for the next meeting.
Thank you.
Thanks, Suzanne. Any other notices of motion? Keith?
I think next meeting it would be good to appoint the people to the committee that was already passed.
Yep, I have that in the announcements, but
Okay.
yeah.
Cool.
Any other notices of motion? Perfect. So announcements. Yeah, I just wanted to start off with an announcement about what Katie just mentioned. So at the last council meeting, a committee was struck to examine the elections policy and specifically systemic racism present in Dalhousie Student Union elections. This elections review committee will have a very specific membership that's outlined in The actual motion that includes members of stakeholder groups, different community groups. There's I believe, international students rep, a black students rep, I don't want to talk about this because I will be sending around the full text of the motion, the full list of people who we will be appointing. As soon as I do that, please, if you have any connections to any students or groups who may be involved in, who may be interested in joining this committee, please reach out. This is going to be quite a large committee, and we really need to work together to make sure that this is filled and that our policy can be amended by the next time that we have an election, which is in the fall. We will also be doing appointments to the Executive Review Committee, which is a committee headed by myself, or chaired by myself, and the External Action Committee, a committee chaired by Masuma, as well as the Student Life Committee, a committee chaired by Corey. If you are interested in joining the Executive Review, External Action Committee, or Student Life Committee, please reach out to any one of the executive or myself. We'll be able to give you information. There's also more information about that in the bylaws and in committee policy.
Sorry, point of information.
Yeah, absolutely.
Was there a specific event or is there a specific concern about the elections that there's racism? Can somebody explain what took place there?
So the...
I think that's a point of the committee, is to figure that out.
Yeah, the Elections Review Committee was struck at the last meeting after a very lengthy discussion by council about accusations of racism in the elections process. I encourage
so it's more of an investigation to see if there was?
No.
An investigation to look at amending, if I understand this correctly, Katie, correct me if I'm wrong, an investigation to look at amending policy to improve the elections process in general. It was related to allegations or issues with systemic racism that happened in this last election. So it's not necessarily a committee to examine systemic racism in the election process so much as it is a committee to examine the elections process that was that was catalyzed by a complaints that happened in the election process. But there was a very lengthy debate on it. The video is available on the Dalhousie Student Meeting YouTube. I listened to it before I came here. It's a lot of fun. I'll be sending around the full text of the motion as soon as I get that so that we can reach out to communities and make sure that we get members. That was my very long announcement about committee appointments that are upcoming. Are there any other announcements that councilors would like to make? Any fun events going on?
Oh, yeah, if you want to be on the Senate Discipline Committee, SDC, they're looking for students. I believe we need 2 more. So if you know anyone that wants to be in those hearings, hit me up.
Any other announcements from councilors?
Just I guess point of information / comment.
Yeah, you can.
Yeah, mostly directed to that, I'm assuming, but I think just everybody. I've heard like a lot today just of little positions here and there coming up. So I'll phrase it in terms of question: is this available publicly? My chief concern is that like we don't want to be seen to be just bringing in people who we know into these positions. So if it hasn't been made public, it'd be great to just see like a Facebook post or just some kind of open call if that hasn't happened already.
Yeah, I can speak to that a little bit. So the committee appointments that were made today were publicized on the Facebook page, and some of us shared it. It was supposed to go in an email, but that email never really happened. But it was sort of public. All the committee appointments for next month will be made public. In terms of the Senate disciplinary, I'm not really sure.
That's just something that had come up, and I just wanted to mention it, but we can definitely make a post about it. It's only going to be for the summer, because for the fall and winter term, it'll be like we're going to have to find a new bunch of students, but Bob, who's the guy who's in charge there, he was just looking for, Bob Mann, he's looking for some students to sit, because there's a lot of cases that have been piling up, and they require to have the student presence to move forward.
But yeah, we're doing our best with publicizing the committee appointments. But any other announcements? Nobody has any. Do I have a motion to adjourn the meeting? Moved by Katie, seconded by Chad. Is there any opposition to adjourning the meeting? Seeing none, I call this meeting adjourned. Thank you all. This was a very quick, efficient first meeting, and I thank all of you for that. If it seems a little bit intimidating at first, it will get better as the year goes on. If you have any questions?